Welcome to Connect with County Leaders. Here's your host, Bryan Hill.
Hello and welcome to Connect with County Leaders. I'm Bryan Hill. On this edition of the podcast, I'm joined by Coach Kim English, former college and professional basketball player, unfortunately and fortunately, the former head coach at George Mason University and current basketball coach for the Providence Friars. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Mr. County Executive?
People are probably going to ask me, why are you having a conversation with the Providence College head coach? But you were a very integral part of our community for 2 years. And we miss you. We love you. But we're watching you do great things in Providence. But the questions I have for you, the impact on NIL and athletics, could you give me a little bit of your thoughts as it relates to NIL?
Yeah, well, the landscape has changed for so long. College athletes were considered amateurs, and the NCAA didn't allow for those amateurs to receive compensation. The federal government passed legislation a few years ago saying that college athletes, just like any other citizen, in the world, in the country, can profit off of their name, image, and likeness. There's some gray area in there, of course, but to put it plainly, college athletes are paid now. They're paid well, and I think it's a good thing. If America's about capitalism, then our young men and women are finally allowed to be a part of the money earning process.
There's always that thing about what would you change if you had the ability to change one thing in college athletics. I don't know if NIL would be it, but would that be one of the high things that you think we should change? Is what we have done, or are there other things that we could do to change college athletics?
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to figure out rules and legislation and what should be. I just take the rules that we have, that they give us, and, we try to strategize and game plan and give ourselves the best chance possible to be successful. There are some coaches that are great at it. I mean, if there was one thing I would change, I would propose a break from football. I think you should let football do their own thing and let all of the other sports, form regional conferences that make sense. What the Big Ten has done, what these leagues have done is, I think it's going to be a disservice to Olympic sport athletes that have to travel from Los Angeles to College Park, Maryland, on commercial flights. That's not a football problem, So my one change would be football breaks away and let football do its own thing. Let the other sports form their own leagues and what's best for us.
Well, isn't that what transcends the Big East? I mean, from Dave Gavitt to Tranghese to the current leadership now, basketball was always been the Big East tournament. The Big East has been basketball, and you've been able to survive. I see now that it keeps growing because we need more teams. You at Providence has done a great job. I think University of Connecticut with Danny Hurley winning the national championship. Do you really think that a basketball-only conference other than the Big East could survive with the way these big conferences are just swallowing up things? I mean, Kim, when I see USC playing Ohio State, and then I see UCLA coming over to play Iowa, I'm trying to think about, is this really college athletics anymore?
Yeah, no, that's the beautiful thing about the Big East. Even when it was a conference with football, Coach Gavitt, who's a former Providence coach, Providence athletic director, obviously founder, commissioner of the Big East. His league is still alive, and it's not only alive, it's thriving. Most national championships in the last 5 years, last 7 years, Connecticut winning back-to-back, Villanova winning in that time frame. I think the best coaches in the country. You talk about Shaka Smart and Greg McDermott and Sean Miller and Rick Pitino. Such a great basketball league. But I do think the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, if they could form their leagues that would make sense within their regions, which would be incredibly cost effective to have Maryland going to play Virginia instead of Maryland going to play Oregon. I think it would be great. But again, that's not my role.
No, I hear you loud and clear, but you were very opinionated when we used to go back and forth about things. I'll never, ever tell folks how many times you called me about things that I was doing wrong in Fairfax County. And I hope you would.
I saw something the other day that happened in
geez.
Fairfax. I sent it to you. I won't say it online. I seen something that happened in Fairfax the other day, and I almost sent it to you. I'll find it. I will send it to you.
I'm sure you will, because you still send me little texts about the things that I have that I'm failing to do here. So I appreciate that.
Is the budget done? Is the budget done yet?
Man, I don't want to talk about the budget right now.
Okay. Sorry. You're asking the questions. You're asking the questions.
So the impact of blending the rosters, now that we've talked sufficiently about NIL, and now you have to blend your rosters, because in my view, when I'm looking at how you've constructed your rosters here at George Mason to Providence, it's sort of like you have the old and the new blending together to make the team work well, because you have an opportunity, because due to the portals, you have free agency every year. How are you going about blending your roster? Because you can go out and get a fifth-year senior, as well as recruiting the freshmen. How is it that you're blending and you're conceiving how to blend your roster?
Well, player acquisition has always been the lifeblood in college basketball. I think retention is now just as important. It's always been important, but now it's kind of more important. I think it starts with the players that we do have, the young guys that we do have, and helping them become better players. And then as the season goes on, as we're evaluating the guys that we do have, it's how we want to replace those guys. Yeah. If we evaluate a freshman and we think he's good enough to come in and replace NBA lottery selection Devin Carter, then we'll recruit him. It's hard to do for a freshman. If you look at the production rate of the top 150 transfers versus the top 150 high school players, it's not even close. It's not even close. So at the end of the day, it's not transfer, it's not high school, it's not JUCO, it's not international. We're just looking for the best available player, the best available person that is going to fit and mesh into our program.
Well, you have done a really great job in doing that. I mean, you really stepped into one of the top Power 5 conferences and absolutely did well. I remember having a conversation with you, and you said, Bryan, we won 6 quad 5 games, and we didn't get it. Quad one games. Thank you, sir. And we were one of 5 or 6 teams that did that, but we were the only team that didn't get in the NCAA tournament. And I read a quote about that, and I kind of chuckled, because I said, yeah, that's Kim English right there. What can the NCAA do to allow for the teams that should be in the NCAA tournament to actually get there? Because I'm not saying expansion, or I could be saying expansion.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not in the business of making excuses. We didn't get in the NCAA tournament because we didn't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. Injury, whatever, bad games, here I am listing off excuses. Josh Aduro's birth of his son Gabriel, misses a game at Butler. We lose by 1 point. But whatever it may be, we didn't win enough games to get in. We did have 6 quad 1 wins, which is the most ever for a team to not make the field. But the NCAA tournament is a great tournament. They do a great job. They're human. They make mistakes. You want to make the NCAA tournament, don't be on the bubble. Fair. If you're on the bubble, you allow for human error. You allow for people to make whatever decision they decide to make. I've gotten over it. I haven't thought about it a lot. We have a great schedule, which hopefully helps us, gives more quad one games. The league is going to be better. We think Georgetown is going to be better. We think DePaul is going to be better, which will help the league. Those were quad four games last year, which kind of hurt. But no, it's the NCAA tournament is a great tournament, and we have being a high major program, you have plenty of opportunities to get in. We need to do more to secure a bid into the Big Dance.
Coach, you did have a couple bad losses, but you had a lot of good wins as well.
We didn't have any bad losses. Say that real quick. We didn't have any quad 3 or 4 losses. We only lost games in quad 1 and quad 2. We didn't have any bad losses. That's not why we didn't get it.
Well, I remember at your first game coaching at Providence, I flew up. I saw your dad. I saw the smile on his face. I saw you on the sidelines. I saw how you were working with the team. I saw you take in players. I saw that were there. I saw how you were leading players that you brought in. What's your advice to young men today? I mean, just what is the advice that Kim English would give, not only just a young man that's a basketball player, but just a young man in general? Because, I've always heard you talk about mindset. I love that. When you and we talked, the book, we read it. But what would be your advice?
Man, find something you love to do, and really go after it. I'd also say you're never too late. It's never too late in life to change course and pursue your dream. Go after what you want. I'd say do it unapologetically. And I'd also say never ever, be afraid to speak up about what you believe in. I think there's certain times in the history of our world where people are brave enough to say what they believed, or not brave enough to say what they believe. And I just look at it years later when the question is, what side of it were you on? If you could be asked that question, like Muhammad Ali was a very divisive figure at a point in time. And I remember his funeral and the droves of people, and it was nationally broadcasted, and he's a legend and a great American now. So I just would say always follow your gut and try to be on the right side of history.
I appreciate you saying that, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of young people who are going to face adversity like we have in our lives, and then we continue to face. There's times I call you, and there's times you call me, and we're never too old or too young to learn. And I appreciate the fact when you call and I pick up my phone, and I even more appreciate the fact with your busy schedule when I call you and you pick up your phone. I really appreciate you for saying what you just said. So I've been watching the TBT, and I see this left-handed dude hit a jump shot from the corner, from the top, to the foul line extended, named Schwartz. I had no idea, and I think they're still in it. I had no idea that Deshaun was still playing in the TBT, let alone, I know he's playing this overseas. I saw a post that you put out there about him. Tell me, how's he doing?
Deshaun's doing great. Deshaun transferred to us at George Mason after 4 seasons at Colorado. He played his COVID year, his free year in college basketball with us in Fairfax. And I thought he was a great player for us. Very efficient, just so talented. He's playing in TBT with the Colorado team. They actually lost last night to the University of Houston in the regional semifinals. And but he hit a game winner against Wichita State, and then he hit a game winner the next night against Kansas, a floater. Yeah. So we love Deshaun. Happy he just signed a contract to go over and play in Germany, which is a great league, top league in Germany, the BBL. And I think he's gonna enjoy Germany the most. He's played in France. He's played in this. He loved Istanbul, Turkey. He loved Paris, France. Now he's going to play in Germany. So I'm just really happy for him, seeing the world, getting paid to do what he loves.
And you talk about Gabriel. You're the godfather of young Gabriel. How is Josh doing, and what's his next for Josh Adoro?
Josh is doing great. He all conference, obviously George Mason alum, back-to-back first team All-Atlantic 10, the first George Mason player to do that in its Atlantic 10 history. He's still training in Fairfax. He trains at Georgetown. Thank you to Ed Cooley. He trains at George Mason. Thank you to Tony Skinn, allowing him back in their gym to get work in. He went undrafted. He signed an Exhibit 10 deal with the New Orleans Pelicans, which basically means he's on the team. He's going to go to training camp, NBA training camp with the Pelicans. If he is to get waived, he'll join their G League affiliate, where he has a chance to be one of their 3 two-way players. I just said a lot of numbers, 10, 3, 2. Obviously, it's confusing, but he has a chance.
And are there any other players? Obviously, Devin Carter is number 13 pick. He's got a shoulder issue right now, but are there any other players that you've coached that are still playing ball and still enjoying life?
Yeah, I mean, so many. So I couldn't begin to name, and I found thankful to social media, Instagram, where I get to see it and follow their journeys and track their stats and see videos. But Davon Cooper, George Mason alum, he played this season in Belgium. Xavier Johnson, who transferred away from us, he pretty much led the nation in scoring this year at Southern Illinois. So many of our guys at Tennessee, Colorado, Yenica Chukwuojiako transferred to us at George Mason from Virginia Tech. He signed a pro deal in Europe. So excited to follow all those guys.
Well, Coach, we're excited that you have placed them in a good place and moving forward. I'm always excited to see you and hear you and talk to you, whether it's good or bad. I'm always excited to have that conversation with you. So my final question to you, when you look at George Mason and Providence, pick one thing that you thought was the best thing, the most memorable moments that you had at George Mason and Providence. I'll just be curious to see, because I have my own for each, so I want to see if we are on the same page.
Yeah, George Mason, it was early in the season and it was followed by disappointment. But, our win at Maryland was a great moment for our program. It was George Mason's first time beating Maryland in 10 tries. So that was really cool. It's just a bunch of little moments in our gym with our guys, sharing moments, watching you come into our practice gym and throw up bricks, but at Providence, it was, the thing about you, because I just hear how great of a shooter you are, and then, you come in. But hey, your tutelage helped Xavier Johnson lead the nation in scoring. That's what I like to tell our staff here. You did a good job putting XJ under your wing, even as county executive, not even paid by the university, and you were helping out our players. And I guess at Providence, the wins are great. The road wins are great. The postseason wins are great. We got to the semifinals of the Big East tournament this season, and the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. If you haven't gone, regardless of your fandom, I think every basketball fan needs to take that trek, no pun intended, to the Mecca, because it really is the Mecca of basketball, and the Big East tournament is second to none.
Well, I appreciate you saying all of those things, and I appreciate you actually answering the question wrong. I think.
Wait, I thought you said my favorite moments in both places.
No. I think the favorite moment was when I met you on Zoom during that COVID-related job interview, and I had to ask you a couple questions, and I thought that would be the greatest moment of your life because that's when you met me.
Oh, I thought the search committee was supposed to remain a secret. Sorry.
But anyhow, I'm going to say this. yes to Maryland, because I remember when after the game you were speaking with Steve Buckhantz, and I walked by you and I said, hey, can I get a selfie, Coach English? And I sent that to the university president of Maryland, who wasn't at the game. I thought that was pretty cool. And another moment for me was watching your face after you won your first game and watching your family surround you and say, congratulations. And I walked by and said, you know, this is just one part of many steps. In closing, we're looking at your backdrop. You got a great backdrop. I see those two beautiful little girls. How are they doing?
Got George Mason still. George Mason's still here. George Mason still got George Mason right there. Can
Okay.
you see that?
Yeah, I see that.
I got George Mason. You just talked about it. There's some George Mason. There you go.
First win,
George
I remember that.
There you go. Yeah, George Mason. Here you go. I got George Mason here. Rick Barnes, first program, first win.
Isn't that your mentor from University of Tennessee?
Yeah, I got some Fairfax County, Kathy McKay, Chevrolet.
All right,
Chris Durr.
we're doing ads now, guys. We're doing ads now.
There we go.
But the girls are good. The family's good, Kim?
If you buy a car, go to Jim McKay Chevrolet. Family's good.
All right, man. Well, I just want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate you, and I know it's a busy time for you. This is the down season, but you are recruiting constantly. I hear and see you and Nate and your team out and about. I just want to say again, many, many thanks for giving me this opportunity. And I want everybody to thank Kim English, head basketball coach for the Providence Friars. And again, brother, thank you for being here. And anytime I'm in my car, you know I'm going to answer my phone. Much love, and I love you, brother.
Thank you. Give me a membership to Robert Trent Jones. Do something, county executive. Is that Fairfax County or is that Loudoun County? Loudoun County.
I can still work on that for you.
All right, if you do that, then you deserve another term.
And that is our final outtake of our day here. Man, I'm in trouble with this one. But anyway, Kim English, Providence College, thank you for your time. And thank you for allowing me to talk to you today on Connect with County Leaders. Thank you.